Welcome to the next show. Today Monique and I want to take a close look at Web3 and what it means for brands. First of all, what is Web3? Many think it is the new iteration of the World Wide Web based on the blockchain, which incorporates concepts including decentralization and token-based economics. Our guest this week is someone who has worked with the biggest brands in the world. She has been named the world's most influential CMO and until very recently was the chief brand officer at Banana Republic. She worked with many luxury brands that people use to establish their status. Her name is Ana Andjelic and she will be joining us from New York. And by the way, Ana is also part of the new book that next will be releasing late September on the 21st century CMO and how the role of marketing is changing completely. I'm delighted to have her on the book and on the show.
It's wonderful and I'm very much looking forward to this conversation. And if you are interested in the way Web3 changes what brands are doing, Anna's the right person because a lot of what's happening now online is establishing new status symbols. Status symbols because you want to show you're part of a tribe, you want to show you can afford something, you want to show you're cool and that's of course what the luxury brands have always been doing. It's all about storytelling, it's all about signals that you have to make. And Anna actually quotes in a newsletter Baudrillard saying, we've replaced everything with signal and that new reality has become our reality. Now, we'll see what that means for brands online, but a lot is happening in that space. And I have the feeling that Anna, who's left Banana Republic, will make some of that happen very soon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And basically it's all about human needs and one need is obviously to show off. And one person who's really digging into what basic human needs mean for brands and developing new experiences is David Metten, our keynote in residency, and he's joining us from London today to share one of his thoughts. David, what do you have for us?
Thanks, Ina. What's on my mind right now is an issue that I think we're going to hear much more about as this year rolls on and in fact for years to come, and that is the mental health crisis triggered by the pandemic. If you look here in the UK, the government's Office of National Statistics says rates of depression have doubled since the pandemic began. Prescriptions for antidepressants are through the roof, and I'm sure you can find a similar story in many other countries around the world. And I think the really difficult thing about mental health around the pandemic is we haven't seen even a tenth really of the story yet. I think we're going to start to hear more and more stories of the difficulty and in some cases, yes, the trauma of having lived through this pandemic. And that's going to lead us into a new cultural moment around mental health and depression and anxiety. And you can see brands starting to respond to that. At the end of last year, I saw Rose from Blackpink, who, if you don't know, Blackpink is this huge K-pop band, very, very popular. They were like one of the most successful K-pop bands in the United States. She partnered with the mental health app Calm to produce a sleep story. It's supposed to be a story that helps get you to sleep and calms your nerves and everything. And now look, I'm not saying that alone by any means is the answer to the mental health crisis that's about to unfold, but I just found it a really interesting signal of the cultural moment we're heading into. Okay, where mental health and mental wellness is going to become an even bigger part of the conversation as a result of the pandemic. And I think if you're a brand, if you're a marketer, if you're a professional out there thinking sincerely and genuinely what you can do to help people in 2022 and how you can build relationships with people in 2022, I think mental health and wellness is going to be a crucial dimension for all of that. So it's one to keep your eye on and one I will be watching closely too. Back to all of you.
She has been called the world's most influential CMO. She worked as the chief brand officer at Banana Republic, but she also advised and worked for brands like Sotheby's, Loewe, Tag Heuer, Moet, Hennessy. And I'm thrilled that she's here to talk about Web 3.0 for brands. Welcome, Ana Andjelic.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now we're going to talk about what Web 3.0 is and what it can be for brands, but I have this question for you. Do you have a big NFT collection yourself now?
Oh, I wish. I'm waiting for the prices to drop. Also, I'm waiting for something aesthetically pleasing for me. I'm not going to compromise on aesthetics just to have an NFT. Although it's probably a faulty logic because they're big investment assets.
They are, right? They are. I mean, it's so amazing what's happening in that space. And over the last few months, I feel like I'm back in school. I'm studying, and it's so complicated as well. I mean, make a meta wallet, and it's complicated. It's amazing that it's grown so fast because all the steps you have to take to actually get involved in this space is not, it's a lot.
Absolutely. And I think it's accelerated in terms of getting into mainstream recently, but honestly, like Bitcoin has been around for like at least 10 years.
Yeah. What is in the world are you working on right now? And we'll dive into our main topics in a second, but after 2 years of pandemic, after leaving Banana Republic, I know you have a newsletter, The Sociology of Business, that is a must-read for a lot of people in the marketing sphere. And what are you up to? What are your plans?
What are my plans? I mean, you don't want to know. What I'm doing right now is basically several things. I'm writing my newsletter and exploring the new Web3. And how does that apply to business and brand strategy? So that is the main focus of my efforts. And there are other things in the works that are going to be announced later in the spring. So I'll tell you more about that then. And there is just a lot of changes that are happening right now, both in terms of application of Web3 technologies in the business and brand domain and in the marketing domain and in brand building. So that is my focus right now.
Yeah, I'm in the world of events about digital technology, and it feels like a time to study again, to really understand again what's going on. I think a lot of people are trying to come to grips what Web 3.0 is and what it means for them as an organization, person or company. So what is your short explanation of what Web 3.0 is? What is it about?
It's a completely new operating and organizational system of ownership of how people interact among each other and with brands, and the entire new strategic paradigm that basically applies those principles of decentralization and ownership in solving business and brand problems.
Okay.
So it's more of a strategic direction than just a technology. So most brands right now are thinking in terms of technology. So what they're asking is, what is this digital thing? What is this NFT that I can mint? Rather than what is Web 3.0 and how can I use decentralization and distributed ownership to connect with my customers, to grow my market, to expand my market share, to launch a new product, and so on. All the business and brand challenges, there's like how do I increase awareness, how I attract younger customers, can be very easily and very elegantly solved if you're saying, hey, if we know now that there is such thing as a creator economy, and how do we employ talent or inspire and engage the talent that exists outside of our companies and use their creativity for our brand.
So what you say is that it's not about NFTs and minting images and selling them. It's really rethinking about a decentralized world in which new and secondary markets can come up, and people are interacting with each other in new ways, and especially interacting with digital assets in new ways, right? I mean, For what brands is this super relevant?
It's relevant for business overall, for global economy and market, which means all brands, but it's especially relevant for brands who trade in aspiration, because one important thing that Web3 allows is self-expression and status signaling that's not connected to physical goods. And that has been a progression that's been going on for a while, from experience, knowledge economy, and then experience economy, and then transformational economy, where intangibles like travel, like going to meditation retreats, like self-actualization, have become new status signaling, new aspiration, eating organic food, cooking at home, like having, special diet. So that's sort of the invisible things. And now we've moved completely from the domain of physical to the domain of virtual. So now when you see that for example, Bored Ape Yacht Club, those apes or CryptoPunks are now used as a status signaling in digital wallets, but also on Instagram and in Web 2.0 social networks like Twitter, as a sign, hey, I'm plugged in and I also have 10,000 and more dollars to spend on this virtual avatar. So basically the purpose of that product, if you will, is purely status symboling. Aesthetically, it's like basically, as we've been seeing, like anyone in the early days of 2021 could have put anything and mint a token out of it. It can be a drawing, a doodle, like whatever you want, and that achieved like crazy valuations. So valuation is not an aesthetic value, valuation is a status symboling, because it's deemed desirable by a large number of people. So this is really relevant. If something that is virtual is deemed so desirable, then the question is, why is 100% of businesses still in the physical world when consumers think that something in the virtual world is deemed desirable?
Yeah, and also that they want to show off status in the virtual world. So you need digital assets to show off your status, right? And I could see that this would be especially relevant for luxury brands. I mean, luxury brands live and die by status and stories and, signaling to others why that you can wear something. What are the luxury brands that, in your view, are making really, really good use of what is possible now already?
Honestly, I think that is the most interesting things, the most business relevant things, more strategic things are only yet to happen, because as you see, like a lot of brands are minting tokens or creating virtual goods, like Dolce & Gabbana, Dodge Crown, and what they showed at their Alta Moda, like some specifically designed virtual items, or Gucci, Roblox, and like selling their bags in the virtual domain for more than they're selling in a physical domain. That just shows you that desirability. And then most recently Prada and Adidas celebrating their nylon bag. So there are a lot of initiatives, and then Fortnite, Balenciaga. So all of them are still operating according to the old economic logic, which means we create something that people can either wear in a virtual world or that exists in a very brand controlled situation. And that is exactly the opposite of what Web3 is, because of that decentralization. And also ownership is still with those brands. You can buy, then you can resell it, but it's limited edition of tokens that authenticity is validated by the brand.
Yeah.
So Roblox Garden is owned by Gucci, Balenciaga Fortnite is owned by Balenciaga, those looks, and so on.
Yeah, and you say this is, using the new platforms, the new possibilities in an old system way. So what would be the new system like? What would be the new kind of thinking that will completely transform how status and digital goods are handled online?
Well, first involve the creators and then reward the creators. You have Fabricant, which is a digital platform that acts like a platform. So they're providing digital creators with tools, and they're creating their own fashion creations in digital domain. and then they are getting royalties if something sells. So brand like Fabricant is a service. It takes a fee.
Yeah.
So that would be a scenario where brands like Gucci charge a fee for creators on their aesthetic platform with the vision set by creative director Alessandro Michele, says the aesthetic vision, aesthetic world. But then if it's a platform, that means that some people can vote on products, people can create products, people can riff off products. And obviously the end curation can always be done by in-house. But then if something sells that someone else designed from outside, which will position Gucci much better if you tap in all that massive creativity versus just your design team. Curation is done by Alessandro Michele at the end. But the point is that there is that distributed ownership. And I'm not talking about this scenario in 5 years. It's going to be in 50 years. But that is one that when you start charging a fee, a service fee for creators. So that is a more economic system that is not governed by traditional organizational forms like corporations. Because corporations at the end of the day were created to create trust. I work here, I'm going to be paid at the end of the month or every 2 weeks. I have trust. But if I have a token, I know I'm going to get paid because I own piece of that, and it is verifiable.
Yeah.
So that really subverts trust, traditional mechanisms of trust that were established in the economy. So you understand how big the scale is. Or I didn't even touch upon DAOs, distributed autonomous organizations, which are right now very complicated to set up in terms of governments and legalities. Because again, the policy, the legalities, the regulations are all set up for a Web2 economy, if you will.
Yeah.
So once that gets going, then you can really think about what is going to happen when you have like Links DAO or Constitution DAO, when a group of people pulls together to buy something and to co-own that.
Yeah.
That is going to change also the rental market and the purchasing market, because the purchasing power is then going towards distribution.
Yeah, and you could also own a small piece of something without having to worry about how that would result in the end, right? I mean, the surprising thing to me is that, so you say brands could open up to to the whole network and have creators involved, and the creators, because of the contracts that are ingrained in the NFTs and also the secondary markets, which still would bring back money into the first original creator, they could broaden the whole world of creation. What surprised me in the last few months is that status can also come from intangibles that I didn't realize would ever be sold. I mean, we had a football club in the Netherlands that sold the moment of a victory 15 years ago because it was the most important victory that club ever had, and that moment was sold and then resold later on. So the intangibles become completely different and not even connected anymore to a brand or a bag or a coat or shoes or whatever. What other possible digital goods could you imagine becoming interesting? Right now it's very much still connected to clothes or, portraits, I guess, is already quite different. Yeah.
Well, what I said, one is that distributed ownership, and then the second one is basically brands as platforms that have a new revenue stream, which comes for opening up. You know how like you would 30, 40 years ago buy a fashion magazine and they were kind of, how do you call that? They were measurement that you could basically copy a design from that. They were like printed on paper, and you can make that stuff at home.
Yeah, Buddha.
And I remember that only I think that my grandmother had that, you know. And I'm like, this is genius, because basically like you're opening up the design, and I think there was a Buddha had that or something like that, And when you have that blueprint for a dress or and you can create your own. So like that's another thing to really think about. Like, how do you make money? You don't need to make money in production of physical goods. You can you can capitalize on your intellectual property, and you can capitalize on your current intellectual property and also on your past one. Imagine if you put all your archives in terms of digital assets and you tokenize them, so there is no doubt of ownership. There is all the information, where it came from, what was the inspiration, the year, and so on. So that entire database can, in the most basic form, live on Web3. But then also there is this thing, authentication of rentals. So the rental marketplace, secondary marketplace, when people bring in Chanel, why is Chanel allowing the Real to take all the money? Why does Chanel not have control over its own secondary marketplace? Especially since authentication with Web3 is very easy to enforce.
And then you say real goods connected to an NFT, the moment it changes hands, the original owner still profits from it, and they can keep selling. You can find a piece that will go on for years.
Yeah, on and on. And also the other thing is, if you think about what tokens really give you, is that authenticity of access and membership. So you buy a Gucci jacket, is connected with a token which has you are the owner, and with that token you also have access to XYZ experiences, art, other people, events, physical stores. So there is a lot of ways to. Most interesting ones are those that connect virtual and physical.
Yeah.
So basically, your Gucci jacket is your membership card.
Yeah.
That that's product passport that's connected with.
Yeah.
With your
and that's an aspirational brand where you want to pay that because you want to, but there are also all kinds of other connections that you can make that are not about signal status. There are also other connections you could make, and that you want to be part of a certain club to show something. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then imagine the reversal. Imagine if the biggest creativity and the latest trends all happen in the virtual domain, because when you think about it, even influencers or anyone who invests in $100,000 pair Air Jordans, they take a photo, they post it on Instagram, and they put it in a vault.
Yeah.
Because that's an investment asset. So it's almost showing off in a digital domain all your possessions. So if that is really the case, then in your physical world you can wear very comfortable, wonderful clothes, but you don't need to keep buying the new stuff that shows off, because your key showing up happens in a virtual domain. And again, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but this is something to consider as the status symbols are expanding from physical to physical intangible, the experiences, to virtual intangible.
Yeah, and we live in this virtual intangible world for 2 years already, mostly. So it has accelerated a lot. It has sped up. I mean, there's lots happening right now that is new and that will work out. That's a fantastic that we want. We still have time for the 5 questions. Do you want to play?
Sure.
All right, here's the premise. There's 1,000 people that go to another planet. You are one of the chosen ones. You are, invited to join us. We have 5 questions for you that you have to answer before you board the ship. First, name one luxury object that you would take to this new planet.
I would take a subscription to Financial Times or something. So Financial Times Weekend. No, just Weekend and how to spend it. And that's the only reason I'm saying, because it's very, since everything is digital, I have unbelievable joy in actually reading in-depth analysis and staying connected with culture. And yes, you can do that in a lot of different ways. But for me, that there is just something very relevant about the traditional.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think that's great.
And skincare, luxury, Augustus Bader. So I would take that skincare. Absolutely. You have to,
Great.
keep the appearances.
All right. You're going on a trip with 1,000 people. What is the book that you would hope everybody would read before they get on the starship? One book.
One book. Let me think for a minute. I love the book on The Anomaly that I recently read. Have you read it?
No.
It's a Goncourt Prize winner, and it's basically how we all live in a simulation. So I think it will be very prescient for the trip.
Okay, now I'm definitely going to read it. Okay,
you should.
We have 999 people already confirmed. There's one empty spot. Name one exceptional person that you would bring along. Not your family, friends, just one exceptional person that you think should be on that flight.
Oh, that's a hard one. There's so many exceptional people. Do I really have to pick a favorite? I think I would, you know what I would do? I would do like the owner of a bodega on the corner of Cabana Magazine. So it's on a corner, I think that's Hudson and, I don't know what the cross street is. Anyway, those guys managed to become a community staple over 50 more years, survive the pandemic, and still sell print matter and be like Instagram presence by all the keeping the bodega style. They're not bodega, they don't sell food, but they're a newsstand. You know, you can find everything there. So the owner, let's take him.
That's the kind of spirit that you need on that new planet. That's true. Community.
Very survival spirit, and also someone who's been in New York for over decades and decades and decades. So I'm sure the stories are fantastic. We need a storyteller.
And that's true as well. Okay, 2 more. Name one law to outrule something on this new planet. Murder is already forbidden, but what is something you say, now, if I have a new planet, that's one thing we really have to outrule.
You know what I would outrule actually? Social media, but not all social media, but Facebook for sure.
I think that's
for sure. Because anything I would forbid non-nuance thinking.
Very good, very good. A planet without Facebook sounds like a good planet. Now,
I know, right? I mean, like, I'm not on Facebook. Are you on Facebook?
I am. And I like being there because I connect to people I've met over the last 20 years that I don't meet anywhere else. So that's the reason. Last question. What is one tradition from planet Earth that, if it were up to you, you would take to this new planet? A tradition. Could be anything small to big.
I think we have wonderful traditions around meals in different cultures, and I think that's one time when everyone sort of comes together and it mixes love and gratitude and humanity and storytelling, and I think and community. So I do think that's really important to keep.
Yeah. Communal meals. Very good. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
See you on the next planet.
Exactly. This was good. I love those questions.
Thank you so much for the insights that you shared with us today, and also thank you for watching the show. If you don't want to miss any further episodes, please simply subscribe to our newsletter on nextconf.eu. There you can also find some more information on our next conference, which will be happening in Hamburg in September. Finally, I'd like to thank our partners, Accenture, Factor 3 and T3N for their support. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.